And hopefully my camera will work because, as you know, I didn't get the new one yet. But okay,
It's
you give
it's
it a
in
moment.
Susan's office, by the way.
I know. I'm in Folsom today, so it's a little far out.
Far out.
Good afternoon. If you're joining us, my name is Roxy Moser with Valley Medical Staffing and VIMA Staffing Partners. Thank you for joining our webinar on navigating the changes to the duration of status rules. We're going to get started in just a moment. I'm going to give it a few more minutes or a few more moments to let people join us. It looks like all of my channels are live. Okay. Thanks, gentlemen, for joining us. If you're just joining us, you are on the live stream of Valley Medical Staffing and VIMA Staffing Partners. Today's webinar on August 13th is about the F-1 visa holders, the changes to the duration of status rules that just went into effect, or were announced rather, a few weeks ago and will go into effect in September. Today on the call, we have, of course, our fantastic CEO and managing partner of Valley and VIMA, Mr. Michael Conley. Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Good, Roxy. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Thanks for joining us. Mike and I will be available to answer questions along with attorney Mike Hammond. But bear with us as we get started. I want to introduce the man of the hour, incredible expert immigration attorney Michael Hammond with Corporate Immigration Partners. Hello, Michael Hammond. How are you?
Hey, Roxy. How are you?
Great. Thanks for joining us today. I know you've been extremely busy, I'm sure, with all of these new rules and questions and the like. So we're going to jump right into it. Let's see. I got to get to my oopsies. A little slide. Okay. Just like normal, when we start our webinars, I like to tell a little bit about our company. Valley Medical Staffing has been around since 2003. And if I'm not mistaken, Attorney Hammond has been helping us maybe as long as that time. So we've had many journeys together in visa petitions. You are quite the expert in helping all our nurses get through the process to green cards. So we are very grateful and lucky to have you, and certainly going strong after a couple decades plus. We help international nurses from over 30 countries. So if you're out there, whether you are already an employee of Valley or VIMA, or if you're interested in working with us, we will help you. We sponsor 83 green cards. If you are a Canadian citizen, we can also work with TN visas. If you have Australian citizenship, there is an E3 visa that might be an option for you. And of course, today we're going to be talking about those who are in country in the United States on F-1 student visas and what that means to the green card process. And let's see, moving forward, we're going to look at our agenda here real fast. We'll go over all the changes. Attorney Hammond will talk directly to those. We're going to then go into a little bit about how we would like to, or we suggest you might consider navigating the OPT and CPT landscape. I'll have Michael Conley also speak to that some. I thought it would be a good idea to do a few case scenarios, just some of the typical cases or questions that we think might come up given the types of nurses, either, again, if you're an employee or considering working with us, what your future might look like given these changes. Then we'll do a quick review of what the F-1 to green card visa process will look like. And then visa bulletin, like usual, we're gonna have Attorney Hammond tell us how to read the visa bulletin and if there's any nuggets of insight he has about what's coming down the pike through the remainder of this fiscal year and into the next fiscal year. And then, of course, we'll have a time for Q&A. All right, let's get right to it. Mr. Hammond, Can you tell us what happened with the changes to the duration of status?
Sure. Well, first of all, there were lots and lots of changes that were made, some of which are not terribly relevant here. Our focus here is going to be on individuals who are following the normal path of F-1, OPT, EAD, grad schools, PT, 485. So what we might refer to as the EB3 path, by which the grad school and CPT kind of becomes the bridge from the filing of an I-140 and the OPT ending until the 45 can be filed and get an EAD card through that. So that's our focus that we're going to be talking about here. There are a lot of changes. There are a lot of transitional changes. The rules all go into effect September 15th of 2026, so a little over a month from now. The biggest things are going to be that up until this point in time, if you're a student and you entered the U.S., your I-94 record said B/S, which simply stood for duration of status, which meant it referenced back to your I-20, and your I-20 will have on it a program date. And it'll say, let's say you're doing a 4-year BSN program, that you're going to be in this program for 4 years. And then you switched programs and you went to a master's program, you simply got another I-20 that said that you're going to be in another program 2 more years in this program, and you did not go through the USCIS. Well, the big change we're going to have is that when you enter the U.S., instead of a D/S, you're going to be given that 4 years, the length of the program. And then if you want to go to grad school, you're going to have to file a 539, an extension of status. It's just a form that's used for all kinds of extension of statuses or change of statuses. And you're going to have to get approved through the USCIS. So something that was previously done by a school only now has to have the US's stamp of approval on it. So that's a big change. That's probably the biggest one and how it affects all of us in this process. We're also not going to be able to do what's called stacking of degrees. So once you get one master's, you can't do a second master's. You can go do a PhD, but you can't do a second master's. Just like you can't do a second bachelor's, you can't do any stacking of anything that are parallel. The grace period goes from 60 days to 30 days. The 539 is simply the form that's going to be used. So let's say that you are someone that needs to, you finished your OPT EAD, and let's just make this up. Let's pretend it's in August of 2027 that you're going to, your OPT EAD is going to expire. And so you're on this EB3 pathway. Because of retrogression, we're in a line that's taken at least 2 years to get from the filing of an I-140 up until the filing of a 485. And so I need to cover 2 years. And my OPT is only covering 1 year because that's all I can have as an RN for OPT. So I need an extra year. So I'm up until under my hypo 7.
And there he goes.
No, was that
September?
I didn't. So that's him, not me.
Did we lose something?
We lost you, Mike, but that might be because you're recovering from pneumonia.
It could be. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe
Okay.
30 seconds back.
So we've got a September 27th. We're going to go to grad school. I get an I-20 from my grad school. In the past, that's all I needed to have done, and then I'm fine. Now I've got to get permission from the USCIS to go to grad school, and the way I do that is through the 539. Now, that is a filing that could be approved, may not be approved. There's no guarantee of them being approved. That's where the change comes into play. We're going to have some idea over the next 3 to 6 months how frequently the USCIS is going to approve. Is this 539 going to simply be a new step in the process where we have to pay our money and the government wants some money from us? in order to do it, and they're going to perfunctory issue approvals, kind of like they do with OPTs now, or STEM OPTs. It's just kind of a rubber stamp. Or is this going to be something where they could deny? Some of the reasons why they could deny, they may simply be, as a matter of policy, saying we don't want individuals going to grad school here in the U.S. We want you to come one program, that's it, you're done. We don't know that right now. It hasn't gone into effect, and we haven't seen any adjudications. That's certainly possible, though. It could also be that they're going to use this as a way to screen, make sure you haven't had a DUI or a theft on campus or anything else, even if it's deemed fairly minor, kind of a thing. It could make a problem in getting approved to go to grad school. Or in our situation, we're going to have already filed an I-140 for you. So we're going to have already indicated that you intend to immigrate, and yet we're asking for a 539 for a non-immigrant visa. And an F-1 is a non-immigrant visa. Our argument legally is that because your priority date's not current, you cannot legally immigrate, which means that you are prohibited by law from exercising your intent. And there are multiple current visa statuses that follow that logic. TN holders routinely travel after they have a I-140 filed and approved. O visa holders are eligible to travel. E visa holders, as long as they do not have a priority date that's current. So that's going to be our big next step, is the 539. And what's going to happen if the 539 gets approved, then you're going to go into the grad school program just like we are doing it now. You're going to be able to get first ACPT, and you're going to continue on as long as the grad school program is at least, say, a 2-year program. Some are even 3-year programs. That should give you enough time with the 1-year OPT to be able to bridge the gap for us to get you a 45 file. If the 539 is not approved, then you're going to have no option but to leave the U.S. Now, your green card case will continue on. You will continue in sponsorship. We will continue to work to bring you back. You'll be coming back from overseas as opposed to finishing your process here in the U.S. And we simply haven't done any of these yet, so we don't know the reaction we're going to get from the U.S. yet. We could sit back in 9 months from now, look at this and go, it's no big deal. It's just a money grab. It's just a little extra money out of our pockets in order to make this work, but everything's working exactly like it was. Or we could look back and go, this is a major change and a major shift in how these programs work. But today we don't really know. Last bullet point on this one is, how's the travel ban affect? There is no pause in the U.S. anymore. The travel ban is only for overseas. The pause is only overseas. But if you're someone who's from a country that's on the travel ban and your 539 gets denied and you have to go overseas, you're not going to be able to come back in until the travel ban is lifted. Now let's talk about some dates a little bit. We're saying that the earliest these things are likely going to occur is next summer and next fall. That's likely the first time we're going to have these 539s come up for your class of candidates and employees. Well, we're only then 1.5 years away from the end of the presidency, which means there may or may not be change in the travel ban. And once you leave overseas, it's going to take at least 1 year, possibly up to 2 years, to bring you back. Simply part of the normal process. So, which means that the travel ban is likely to have already been lifted, or at least we're under a new administration by then. So the travel ban seems relevant, but I don't think it is likely as relevant as we may think it is, simply because of the timing.
And it doesn't affect anybody in country right now anyways.
Not at all. No effect on anyone in country right now.
Right. So lots of changes are happening and lots of question marks are happening, which is to say that just like normal, we'll keep track of these changes and any information that Mike hears from the immigration world to help anyone navigate through the system. And of course, not everyone has the same situation. Some people are having they're are in OPT currently or about to start OPT. Some people may be in CPT. It is worth noting that, especially if you are a Valley or VEMA RN, your particular case will be looked at individually, and we will discuss with you what the plan is for your journey. If we haven't already, I'm sure many of you out there listening actually have had contact with either myself, Dave Malconian, or Jacqueline Sanchez, if you are currently in OPT or CPT, about what some of those next steps are. And we'll continue to follow up with you. And of course, anyone that does come to work with us will help you through that process. And then Attorney Hammond is going to be able to help you walk through that process as well. I think, to your point, Mike, we won't know exactly the outcome of these 539s until we start seeing case studies of them, many of them getting through the process, and we'll adjust accordingly. Let's see. I did want to say, just to reiterate, I heard the potentials that may be considered for a 539. They could be things like maybe they don't want people to stay for extra degrees, or if they had to screen for something like social media posts. But Mike, did I hear you correct and say there's a big possibility that they could just approve these right away, and it would just become a thing where they're asking us to file them and pay some money, but it might go well and smooth. It just might be an extra step.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. That is our best case scenario. And it is plausible. It's not just a dream and a hope and someday I hope to grow hair again. No, this is a real plausible thing, because they follow that process with many, many other case types using that same legal logic.
And I have a quick question. Was there a fee previously for filing 539s?
Well, in the past, we didn't need the 539.
Well, for F1s, yes, but generally speaking.
Yeah, there's always been a fee for 539.
Always been a fee. Okay.
Yeah, and everybody pays the same. Whether you're someone on an F1 like this, wanting to go to a new grad school, or someone who, say, is an F1, and let's say you get married and your spouse is an H1, and so you're moving to an H4, you would also use the 539 to change status. All the fees are the same.
Okay, I gotcha. And so with respect to the fee as it relates to an F1 visa, that is now applicable, of course, for when you're switching from, say, OPT to CPT, or perhaps from a master's to a doctorate CPT. And what is the fee?
Yeah, it's gonna be a round number of about $3,500.
Okay,
and that includes premium processing, which is necessary.
And why is it necessary for premium processing for the 539?
Because otherwise you're not allowed to work until you're approved.
Yes, and we would like our nurses, the hospitals hire for continuous work authorization. So again, this is part of our strategy to help you guys get through this process and be able to continue working through it. Okay, so let's see. Mike, did you have anything Conley, to add on this slide before we go forward and talk about OPT and CPT?
The only thing I'd say is that there's a lot to be determined still. And as we move through time, we'll have some more of those answers, and we'll have other webinars to discuss what's happening. But the most important thing is timing. Timing is crucial in this process. You need to be on the ball. You need to get your documentation ready timely, because there's going to be very small windows to take care of the things that are needed to be taken care of.
Yeah, agreed. There's a question here I think we should cover. And folks, everyone is more than welcome to add questions into the chat, and we'll get to them as soon as we can throughout the webinar today. But Samra is writing, if someone does a dual bachelor's, example BSN and another bachelor's, through which they get 3 years of OPT, so an OPT and STEM OPT, can they work on that 3 years of OPT while waiting for green card?
And not as a registered nurse. Because
if they are registered,
registered nurses do not get the 2-year STEM extension.
Okay, well, that answers that.
But in Samra's case, she has 1 year of OPT that could be used,
Right.
and then she would need to apply for a master's of nursing program in order to get into a new CPT program
Correct.
if she wants to be a nurse.
Right. That's right. If you want to be a nurse.
Why don't we
Okay.
hit the other one? Amy Kim
Yeah.
asked, do you guys recommend going MSN before 9:15 or keep the OPT for current F1 students?
Well, thank
Well,
you.
that's a great question. And we have actually been recommending people to get into a CPT program as if they can still before 9:15. Because that way you'll have 2, possibly 3 years of clear runway without the USCIS, having to do any, looking at an I-539 extension or anything at all. And the thinking is that during that, CPT period, especially if it's a 3-year program, then we would be able to get you to the I-485 filing and the EAD that's associated with your adjustment of status. So we have many nurses that have jumped into a CPT program right now. And I know that there's not that many other opportunities out there, but we're trying to find some for people.
Right. So to Mike's point, to reiterate, the 9/15 is the date in which these rules go into effect. So if you are in a CPT program before that must start before 9/15, you will have the duration of that CPT with work authorization. For our nurses, if you're in that CPT, we think we can get you through that time period of getting your I-485 filed and your new work permit for your EAD, perhaps before that CPT program ends. If you choose to stay in your OPT after the September 15th date, and then you will need to enter a new CPT program, a master's program or more, you will be subject to the 539 filing. And we'll go over this again. Since we have this one other question, we can, what do you think, guys? Maybe we'll just go for it right now about from Ming.
Yeah.
The USCIS denies my 539 for OPT because F1 is non-immigrant intent, but I filed the I-140. Can they apply for a master's, or would they get denied from the master's?
No.
What does that person do?
The 539 is the application for a master's. So if the 539 is denied, it's denied.
And you don't need a 539 to go into OPT.
No, you do not. It's only
Right.
for, I finished my whole bachelor's program, I finished my OPT, now want to go into a grad school program.
Good point. No 539 for OPT. I read this question perhaps though as if my I-140 is filed by the time, before. What happens to a person if they have a filed I-140 and they have to file a 539? Not for OPT, but for CPT?
Well, in theory, everyone will fall under that. They will have an I-140 filed.
And we don't believe there will be any issue with that.
But we don't know.
We don't know. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So let's move to navigating the OPT and CPT. So this slide, guys, is meant to cover if you were to come work with us and you were graduating, say in December. I'm going to have Michael Conley maybe walk through a little bit about, how and when you think we're advising our nurses on when to file for OPT and how to handle that part.
Okay. So, and Mike Hammond will jump in when I say something wrong. So certainly with the new process is going to be, pretty straightforward. It's going to be like the old process of, you do your bachelor's degree, you get OPT for a year, you apply for CPT with, day one work authorization, and you get your master's degree. And during that whole time, your I-140 is in process. We file at I-485 when we're eligible to file it. You'll get a new work permit, and then you won't have to worry about school anymore, and you'll just be waiting for your green card to be issued. Doesn't that sound easy? It is. However, now we have the little problem with the I-539. And so it makes timing critical. So if you're graduating in December, what you should be doing is be filing for your OPT as soon as you possibly can, which is 90 days before the end of the program. Okay, so you should be going in and talking to your DSO about filing for OPT at that moment that you can start filing for it, that 90 days. Because right now it's taking about 5 months to process OPT. So what you want to do is 90 days before the end of the program, file for your OPT and request that your OPT is issued 60 days after your program. So you'll have 90 days before your program ends and 60 days after your program ends, which is 5 months, your EAD should be issued at that point in time. The timing works out well, actually. You'll be graduating in December, taking the NCLEX in hopefully January at some point in time, and then you'll be going through the onboarding and relocation process to go to work, which would be, into February. So I'm just going to give you a quick example. Your graduation is December 15th. So on September 15th, approximately, you're going to be filing for your OPT. You're asking for your OPT to start in February 15th of next year. So then when you graduate in December, take the NCLEX in January, start work in February. Okay, so that's the OPT process. And then you'll have an OPT that's available from February 15th of 27 to February 15th of 28. Now comes the next part, and that is the applying for, getting into a master's program and filing the I-539 in order to be approved to go into that master's program. Now, I believe Mike was saying you need at least 60 days prior to the end of your OPT in order to get everything filed properly and to get it processed timely. As he says, it'll be filed premium processing, and that way it'll be able to come out. Right now I think regular processing on a 539 is like 5 months. That's just, you can't do it that way. So you need to file premium. So what you're going to do is you're going to apply for a master's program and get into it, and you're going to have to pay for that master's program in order to have them issue a CVIS record for you, a new CVIS record, so you can take that and add that to your 539 extension application. Because if you don't have an I-20 for a future program, you can't file the I-539. So if it takes 60 days before you want to file your 539, 60 days before the end of your OPT, that means probably 90 days before the end of your OPT, you're contacting a academic institution and applying to have a start date on a semester that's right around when your OPT is ending. Okay? And then the 539 will be processed during that time as well. Mike, did I do okay?
Nope, that's perfect.
Holy cow, that's amazing. Risks and considerations.
Just to jump in, the CPT program or the master's program, Mike Hammond, you've mentioned to us, of course, this I-20 would be for at least a 24-month period when you submit the 539, which most master's programs will fit that bill. Certainly another reason to follow this kind of advice that Mike Conley just mentioned to you folks is that it just gives you this really great planning time. It takes the stress out of knowing whether or not you're going to actually get your OPT EAD. You're going to have those 5 months of waiting for it. That way you won't necessarily need to file premium right away unless there's any sort of issue with the OPT down the road. Planning ahead is going to be key, navigating this new system as we wait and see what happens with the 539s generally. So thanks, Mike, for those explanations. And go for it. Risks and considerations. What do you both say on those?
Well, I think the primary risk is that the 539s will be denied. And for whatever reason, to some degree, the reason's irrelevant. if they're being denied in mass. Now, we'll have an idea before individuals on this call come up. We're going to probably, have 50 to 75 filed in first quarter of this, 2027 through my office. And so we're going to have a pretty good idea of what's the track record look like. But I think that's the biggest risk. And then, we'll have to adjust based upon that.
But we will, if we start processing, you have an I-140 filed for you. Mike's office is filing the I-140s as consular processed, meaning that they are technically to be processed overseas, because you can take an overseas processing and do an adjustment to status, but you can't do an adjustment to status I-140 filing and move it to consular processing. So we're going to start by filing everything consular processed. And if your 539 is denied and you have to leave the country, we will be continuing the immigration process for you, the green card process, with the expectation that you're going to get the green card at some point in time, and we'll have you come back over and work for the client that you were working for if they still want you. And if not, we'll find somebody else that does. But, we're making an obligation, and we're going to stand by it.
Yeah. I'm going to add also, with a consideration and potential risk, is just making sure you're planning ahead for that 539, in particular for getting into your CPT program, to have your extension all set and ready to go to file that 539. And one of the things to consider is where your program end date sits. So with respect to employment through the hospitals we work with, it is full-time work authorization. They're hiring full-time positions, and we want to avoid lapses in any sort of work authorization. So our team will certainly review with you, but you may have to look at the end dates of your OPT or end dates of your or start dates rather of the CPT to be able to make sure you make the puzzle fit. So that you can get into the right timing of a CPT program to not have a lapse in work authorization, and also file in time the 539 to get your new work authorization. I think we may have mentioned it, but just to reiterate, once that 539 gets approved, you then take your I-20 back to your DSO, and the DSO will grant you your CPT work authorization. So you'll have that work authorization once the 539 is approved. Hence the steps that need to happen in that particular order. Yeah, great. Okay, so I see some questions about scenarios coming through. So I'm going to switch to our case scenarios. Guys, bear with us. What I've done here is what I wanted to do is talk through some scenarios based on who I think might be out there listening. And then anybody we haven't covered, we'll go back to. So Mike Hammond, somebody that's currently in a CPT program for 24 months, they are already in it and before the 9/15 changeover deadline. What is their situation? Just walk us through.
I'm assuming they already have an I-140 filed.
Yes.
So in my opinion, they've done everything they can possibly do to provide themselves a sufficient bridge time to get to where they can file a 45. So I think they are golden. They're in great shape.
Okay. And this is where we would add that as soon as you are eligible, we'll be filing your 485 and your new 765 EAD while you're, once assuming your petition has been filed, that way, while you're in the CPT, we think that we'll be able to get you to the point of having your new EAD based on the adjustment of status document that was filed. Mike, once they have that EAD in hand from the I-485 filing, what happens? Are they subject to this?
Yeah, they do not need to stay on the F-1. They do not need to stay in a CPT program. There's no advantage in doing that whatsoever. Now, you may find that you're close enough to graduating that you want to finish your coursework and finish your program and get your degree. And that's perfectly fine. And you can do that on a 485, but you do not need to stay on an F-1.
Thank you. I get that question a lot from some of you guys. Once I get that EAD, what is it? So to Mike's
basically
point,
you take that EAD, you show the EAD, to the employer who updates your I-9 records, because now you're working based on a different reason, and that's all there is to it.
Great.
I was going to mention something, Roxy, about the CPT program. If you're in one currently, you should talk to your school about maybe seeing if they have an area of emphasis that you can add to your program that might give you some additional time on your CPT. We do have some partner schools that we work with that have 3-year programs, which we think are the best kind of program to go into, because it gives you as much runway as you can possibly get. That's the goal here. You want to have as much time as possible to get through the process of filing the I-140, filing the I-485, and getting your work permit associated with the adjustment of status. So it's this game of getting as much time as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point there. And okay, so let's talk about the scenario where, and this will come up for a lot of you, I'm sure, you're graduating in June, or your OPT, you graduate in May rather, and you expect your OPT to start in June. What will this process as of today look like?
Wait, okay, so the bullet point says the OPT is ending in June, but we're saying it's starting
we're currently,
in June?
I apologize I skipped ahead. So we're currently in OPT and it's ending next year. Yes. So they're not going into a CPT program before 9/15. They're staying in OPT.
Then you will be subject to the 539. June minus 2 months. So we're like April. You want to make the NA program I-20 issue.
Mike's breaking up, but I can answer this question.
Thanks. Yeah.
So you're going to want to, if the June 27 is the end of your OPT, you want to make sure that you're filing the I-539 in April, 60 days before your OPT ends, minimum. But that means you also have to, previous to that, apply to and get into a CPT program that has a start date before the end date of your OPT, because you don't want to have any gap. Employers hate gaps. So you're going to be looking in April or early April or March to get into a new program, so that you're ready to file the I-539 in early April to get to the point where it's approved and you can get your I-20 updated before your OPT ends. So that's the timing on that.
Yeah.
So you're going to be looking at starting probably 90 days before the end of your OPT, if not earlier, in order to get through the application process of any school that you want to get into, so that you have everything in hand to give the I-539 time to be adjudicated.
Yeah. Mike Hammond, you froze a little bit on us, so Mike took over. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, good. All of us were spending on mine. So I'm glad that the better looking Mike and much younger looking Mike took over for me.
Okay.
So now we can go to the graduating BSN in May of 27, because I know we have a couple of people who've asked that question in our chat here. It's going to be similar to what we were talking about for the person graduating in December of this year. You're going to have to do the OPT filing 90 days before you graduate in May, and you're going to ask for your OPT to start 60 days after you graduate in May. And then during the OPT process, that's when you're going to work on getting into your CPT program and getting your I-539 filed. And I think we've covered that a few times, unless Mike wants to add.
Yeah, let me add in on that. We're going to have by that time enough cases that we've seen what's happening with the 539s to know whether that program is going to still work for you. Because your OPT is going to be valid until sometime July of 2028. So we're going to have tons of time. We'll know what's happening. and we'll know whether that plan is going to continue to work or if there's going to have to be a new plan for you. But you're not going to have a lot of uncertainty.
That's good. We like that. We're waiting for the time when we have more data to understand how to navigate this new system. And to your point, by that time, we should. Okay. So let's see. We kind of touch base a little bit, but OPT or CPT, they're ending in December of this year, 2026, and they're waiting on a new AAD card. We have some nurses in this particular scenario. I know, Mike, there's no way to say exactly when the EAD card will be released, but what can they do to mitigate the risk of running out of CPT or OPT without their EAD in hand?
Well, for CPT, since they're not going to have an EAD, they simply need to be, if their current CPT is ending December 2026, they need to get into a new program before September 15th in order to go beyond December 2026, thereby avoiding the 539. If they have an OPT that's ending in December 26, surely they're still not waiting on the card, because that means that was approved last year and it's now been pending 8-9 months. So that seems unlikely to happen. So I think the key is if you have CPT expiring in December 2026 or OPT expiring in December 2026, you need to be in a program now before 9/15 that allows you at least 2 years, fine, of grad school prior to 9/15.
Okay, so ideally before 9/15, there's a hustle, but if they don't make that date, they're filing the 539 if they don't have a new work authorization, and they're doing it ASAP, as soon as possible, because
they're doing it in like
November already.
November, yeah,
right.
And it's a scary proposition, because if I know we have some people that work for us that don't have OPT eligible and they're graduating in September, and so they're not even eligible. They're not even going to be able to get the OPT to buy them any time. So when they graduate at the end of September, they have 30 days. And that's probably not going to be enough time to take NCLEX, apply for another master's program, and get through the 539 process.
Yeah.
And Mike can comment on that. It's a brutal position to be in.
Yeah, I think if I were faced with that reality, I would resign myself, not necessarily in a negative way, but just I would say the odds of all these things happening together, of me getting NCLEX pass, getting into grad school, applying all within those 30 days is very unlikely. I would go the over. And when I graduate and I pass NCLEX, I'm going to be leaving. I'm going to be filing for my 140 under the CP to start with.
Could you repeat that, Mike?
The odds of all those other things coming together. Yeah, if you only have 30 days to take your NCLEX, pass, get into grad school, and get a 539 filed, I think for a lot of people that's going to be very, very difficult. Grad schools do not generally make decisions in 24-hour turnarounds. And you only have 30 days now. And so I think you might be looking at a situation where you're like, look, I'm not even going to bother with trying this. I'm going to just pretend I'm going to be an overseas nurse. And I'll come back in when my priority date's current in a couple of years. So I think there's going to be some harsh realities where we just have to face, because, throw on the extra cost of the 539, throw on the cost of paying for a grad school to even get my I-20 issued. And I have no idea if it's going to be approved. I just graduated last week. It's not like I'm making any money. I mean, all those are practical things that you have to consider that are not optimal from us. From our perspective, it's more optimal if you can stay here, work, go through the program. That's better for everybody. But sometimes the answer is that's not going to work under your individual circumstances.
And you know, quite frankly, if that's the situation for you, you've been talking to us, and we were, you know, wanting to work with you, or if that's the situation and you want help to, you know, go through the consular process and go back home and then go through the immigration process while you're overseas, that's what we do as well. I mean, we hire nurses from overseas every day, and in your case, you'd be going, you know, someplace where you have a U.S. nursing license and a U.S. nursing education. Your goal at that point in time would be to get as much experience at the bedside as you possibly can, and wait out the time to get your green card, and then, you know, we'd bring you back and get you taken care of. So it's not the end of the world, but it's pretty darn close, unfortunately.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Okay, so looking at case scenarios, and just to move us forward, I want to just acknowledge Maya's question. We did cover the scenario of the May 2027 graduating. I know there's a lot of other scenarios out there. You are always more than welcome to reach out to us and our recruiters, and we will take a look at your individual case. But also covering these other questions, Ming, I also think we answered your question about if you're graduating in August of 2027 and you apply for your OPT 90 days before graduation. Yes, that's approximately May. You do not have to file a I-539 for OPT. You need to file 539s for CPT. So when you go from your bachelor's to your master's, that's when you'll need to file. Cecilia, you asked the question of, do you also help nurses navigate CPT search options, and asked if we had partnerships with graduate institutions to suggest. 100%. We have a fantastic university that we partner with. Also, that scores of our nurses are actually attending their MSN program and EMBA program. Both of those, Mike Conley mentioned earlier, do have an option for a third-year concentration. And our recruiters will walk you through that. They'll talk you through all that. The ADN question on OPT, I'm going to move forward. If we have time at the end, we might answer it, but I did answer.
It's simple. It's a simple question for the ADN. If you're an ADN and you're on OPT, you're going to have to get into a BSN program, and you're going to have to file the I-539.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be able to help you until you have your bachelor's degree. So,
yes.
Unfortunately.
Thanks, Mike. Okay. For the ones graduating, Maya also asks, in May 2027, do you think it's better to apply CPT and stay on CPT for now? Mike Hammond, that's a good question, because she is graduating in 2027. Actually, and Mike, I know you'd maybe comment on this. They are eligible for OPT, I believe, in this instance, starting at graduation.
Yeah, if you're not graduating with your BSN until May 2027, it's impossible to get into grad school before September 15th of 2026.
And furthermore, you're going to want to have OPT in order to buy yourself the time that's going to be required to do the 539 filing and applying to and getting into a new college. So there's really no direct way to go right from a BSN into an MSN program immediately. You're going to need to do OPT in order to get the runway required to go through that whole process.
Right. Thanks, Mike. Cecilia followed up about her program, which actually ends in December. So your program ends in December, but your graduation isn't until May. If I'm correct, Mike Hammond, OPT is based on program end date. So OPT eligibility should be based on the December date. And certainly you need to take NCLEX and get your registered license before you are able to start working as a nurse. So, but if they are taking NCLEX in late February and they start their OPT in February, they should be eligible to work after, correct?
Yeah, that's generally how schools treat it. They don't base it upon the ceremony of graduation, but they base it on when you complete all the program requirements and you've completed the program. In the fact you might walk later is irrelevant.
And I think in Cecilia's case, if she's graduating if her program ends on December 26th, she can have her OPT start up to February 26th of next year, 60 days past the date. And you can talk to your DSO about the specifics of that. I'm not sure why you'd be eligible for the NCLEX on February 27th, but the idea is if you can get an OPT starting on February 26th and you take the NCLEX on February 27th and pass, you're ready to work. That would be great. And then you've got an OPT that's for a year, and that'll give you plenty of runway to go through the I-539 process to get into your MSN CPT program.
Great, thank you. We do have only 10 minutes left, so there are a couple other questions. Maybe I think we should answer the questions, folks, and then we'll try to whiz through the visa bulletin as fast as we can given the time. But with respect to Srijana's question here, BSN from Nepal and a STEM designated MPH from the US. I applied initial OPT with premium. I'm assuming maybe you don't have your OPT granted yet. Should I continue with my OPT or choose day one for my future EB3? So what might this person's scenario look like to you?
Well, I mean, the first question I would have is whether the school is going to approve employment as a bedside registered nurse with a MPH STEM degree. In my opinion, most schools will not, because registered nurses is not a STEM program. And so they're hesitant to provide STEM employment for programs that are not STEM degrees. I guess in theory, schools could. It's up to the school as to whether they would approve a STEM employment for that position. So I think that's one of your questions. And then I think from a pure practical perspective, I know a lot of my clients would question, if you have a MPH, is that the field you're trying to go into, or are you really wanting to be a bedside nurse? I mean, there's a lot of cost and time involved in getting green cards for registered nurses. And if you have no intention of actually working as a registered nurse, but simply using the shortcut that registered nurse have, but your intention is to work in this other field, I think a lot of my hospital clients would be very reluctant.
And Mike, in this case too, since she already has a master's program under her belt, if she applies for a master's program, 6 months from now, she's not going to be accepted because it'd be stacking.
Correct. That's right. She
won't even be eligible for an MSN program at that point. Her next step would be going into a doctoral program. And that's going to make things even more challenging. So her best bet now, even while because she's still waiting for OPT, would maybe be to try to get into a master's of nursing before 9/15.
Right.
Yeah, unless her career path is, I came and did this MPH for a reason. And that's what I want to be. And if so, then you're looking for a job in the MPH field, and then you don't go through this process at all. You go through an H-1 visa or some other kind of visa category if you're in public health.
Sorry about that, Mike. Still getting over it. I hope you gets better. We're moving to this question Sharma has about it sounds like you have a TN visa and an I-140 pending. That's true. It's not 100% sure at this time whether the extension will be granted for your MSN, only because we just don't simply have that data about how likely it is or isn't. But it doesn't necessarily mean that your I-140 or excuse me, your extension would be rejected because your I-140 is filed. Does a TN affect?
Yep, no, that is 100% correct. The way Sharma stated that's perfect.
Okay. And the last question I have right now is from Maya about how you guys help us. So, you do not pay us. We do not take a fee. You work as a nurse, and we are a staffing agency, Maya. And the next slide, I'll go very, very quickly. Certainly, I welcome anyone to watch this again on YouTube. This will live there forever. You can freeze your screen if you want to look at this slide, or you can certainly reach out to us. But essentially, as a staffing agency, we're going to, once you join our team and review and sign our contract terms, and certainly have the appropriate requirements like graduating, taking NCLEX, and having OPT or CPT, depending on your situation, we will help you relocate and once you have received a job offer from your hospital interviews. With respect to your I-140 visa petition, if for an EB3 visa green card, you can expect that to be filed approximately 6 weeks or so after you start working. And then we will be filing your 485 adjustment of status documentation as soon as you are eligible, visa bulletin depending, which we will go over in a moment. At that time, we'll also file your 765 for a new EAD card, and you have the option of filing an I-131 advanced parole document, although you are responsible for the cost of that particular document. And so that's the very, very quick and dirty version of how an EB3 works for an F1. And certainly are always going to be available to look at your particular situation and walk you through that process.
And I will add to that, Roxy, I know we're short of time, but I will add to that. There is a significant cost with regards to the I-539. And
yes, thank you.
Because this is such a new process for us, we have not made the business decision as to whether we will be paying for the I-539 or where you're going to be responsible for it. It's just, we're going to have to wait and see.
We're going to wait
Might be
and see.
something you split. We'll see.
But we do know that we will have Attorney Hammond's team assist in filing that 539 with premium processing.
However, we could see that if it's really easy and everything's getting approved, it's the type of document that you can file yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
without the help of an attorney and the expense of an attorney, because Mike is very expensive.
We'll learn together. Okay, Mike Hammond, can you please cover the visa bulletin very quickly? We do not yet have September's. I haven't looked as of today, though, if it's come out, but this is August.
So generally speaking, in the summer, the government fiscal year runs from October 1st to September 30th. So we're at the end of the fiscal year. So normally we see very little movement. Matter of fact, look under the India 2, India 2nd, EB2. You see there, that means it's unavailable. That means they've used up all of the visas that were allotted for India in the second preference category for the year. That means the system is working efficiently. They gave, let's call it 10,000 visas out. They used up 10,000. That means none got wasted, because otherwise they get wasted. Our expectation is that in September's bulletin, we'll have very little to no movement. We may have some other categories that go U. The Department of State's predicted that, whether it happens or not, or whether they just leave them the same, or whether they retrogress them. But we don't expect much movement in September. Our big movement is in October. That's fiscal, and that's when we'll have some idea as to what carryover we're going to have from this year. Keep in mind, we've had the visa ban for at least 3 quarters. We've had a pause put on 75 other countries coming from overseas. So we certainly think they've probably not used all the visas, which means we think on the family side, which means we think we're going to get some push over to the employment side. We don't know that, but that's our speculation. So October will be a big bulletin for us, kind of time frame. This bulletin will, the one coming out soon, will probably be anticlimactic.
Okay, what do we use final action for?
Final action, first of all, if you're overseas, final action is important because that's when you can go have your interview and you can get approved. If you're in the U.S., you can always file your 485 if you're current under the final action date chart. It also means that if your 485 is already filed and pending, your case can be adjudicated, which adjudication under today's terms can mean an approval could mean a request for evidence, or could mean scheduling of an interview. So final action date chart is always the chart you can use. That's what we use when we're predicting how long retrogression is. The other chart, chart B, or day for filing chart, is not very helpful for determining how long retrogression is, because it just goes up and down too much.
Okay, let's move to the dates for filing chart.
So the date for filing chart tends to be a leading indicator of where the dates are going to go in the course of a fiscal year, even though it hasn't really worked that way 2 of the last 4 years. But historically it has, this year because of weird things. But the USCIS does not have to honor this chart for 485 filings. We honored it for the 11 months so far. They're not likely to honor it in September. So they decide. So the Department of State releases the bulletin, and then 1 or 2 days later, the USCIS posts which chart they're going to use. And they do it based upon workload of how many they already have in process. So we'll know if the date's current, or like it is here right now. And the USCIS says, sure, we'll take all those filings in October. Then a whole lot of people are going to be eligible to file. And a lot of people that were really worried about the CPT and everything, all those worries go away for at least 30 days.
I'm sorry, Mike, you did cut a little. How likely do you feel like it might be that in October it will remain current?
Well, I mean, the date for filing chart is generally going to match last year's. They're not going to go backwards, generally speaking. That would be extremely rare. Whether the USCIS accepts it or not, I don't know. I'm not betting they will. I don't
even after October.
I don't think they did last October. I think they honored it in November.
Okay. Well, that's a month later. That's okay. Okay. Great. So, let's maybe cut to the last of the questions before we let you go, since it is 3:02. We're a couple minutes after the hour. Let's see, Ming, how would you mind telling us how a consular processing looks for a nurse who already has an I-140 approved and a pending 485, but have to return home, worst case scenario, due to a 539 being denied? In terms of paperwork, do they have to file that I-485 again?
So if you have a 45 already filed, you'll never file a 539. So your hypothetical would never be factually accurate.
Because they should have an EAD based on that 485.
Well, and you're not eligible to file a 539 anyway.
But that's your reasoning, correct?
Well,
or you cannot because
you
it's the
cannot
immigrant
file a
intent.
539 if you have a 45 file.
Right. Okay.
If you have a pending I-485,
Cannot.
you're in the best scenario you can possibly be in. You should be getting a work permit soon, and then you're just waiting for your green card to be approved when their priority date becomes current. So that's you're in a good situation.
And the timing 45s right now is all over the board. We obviously filed a lot of 45s in March, April, and May of this year. And we had some filed in that time range, March, April, and May, that honestly were approved as early as June. So I had some that were under 60 days. I also have cases filed from 2024 that are current and have not yet been adjudicated. So
those got lost behind a filing cabinet, probably.
Yeah, they're quoting 30 months is what the USCIS is quoting. My range is close to 36 from about 3 months.
But that's for the 485 adjudication.
It just seems to be random.
And how long does it usually take now to get the I-765 approved? That's the work permit.
Yeah. I don't honestly see them, so I don't honestly know. I haven't heard anybody tell me it's been over 6 months. So I'm assuming they're all under 6 months. But normally I don't hear about it unless something goes wrong.
Okay. All right. So maybe Mike Conley, you can answer Kennedy's question about if a person graduated in May, would you recommend they stick with the OPT that they would have filed for, or maybe shoot for day one CPT before September 15th?
I would recommend if before September 15th, if you can find a program and get into it on a day one CPT that lasts for 2-3 years, I would do that. I would do that. It saves you having to go through the I-539 process in the next 8 months, which is a crapshoot. If you can get into a 2 or 3 year CPT program before September 15th, you just go to school and work, and everything, you know, the I-140 and the I-485 are going to get filed for you. You don't have to deal with the 539. It just seems like it's a no-brainer at this point. But the hard part is you don't have a lot of time. There's
Right.
not a lot of options out there for you. But give us a call. We'll talk to you.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Well, 3:05. That's a good timing, I think. Any last words of wisdom, Mike Conley?
Patience, be thorough and prepared. Pay attention to the timelines. They're extraordinarily important anymore. And if all goes south, and you have to leave, we're working with you. We will continue the process with you through the consular process overseas. So, you know, we're going to be there for you, like we have been for the last 25 years. And this too shall pass. This type of nonsense going on with immigration in the United States right now is eventually going to go away. Don't ask me when, but it should eventually go away.
And how about you, Mike Hammond?
Well, whenever someone says something like that I believe in so strongly, I usually borrow a phrase from one of my old colleagues and say, from your mouth to God's ears.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. Yes, this too shall pass. All right, gentlemen, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us, and everyone who's been listening out there. Thank you for joining us. This is available. It will be streaming on our YouTube channel indefinitely, and certainly on our Facebook and LinkedIn channels for the next several, I think, weeks. And if you need to reach out to us, feel free to send us a message at any time. Certainly speak with recruiters. We'd love to work with you. We will get you through this process for sure. So stay the course. Thank you, guys. Thanks. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Roxy. Feel good.
Thanks,
Feel better, Mike.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
feel better, Mike. Bye.
Thank you.